Glad to be here and welcome to everyone. So I study environmental injustices associated with disparities in access to basic services and environmental amenities, especially clean water, safe sanitation, household energy, and healthy food, and other deprivations that are associated with poverty and systemic discrimination. Usually, people who are facing these kind of vulnerabilities are socially vulnerable, often racial, ethnic minorities, religious minorities, and other identities that can foster discrimination, as well as women and children in different communities. And so I partner with communities to research these issues across multiple countries in Africa, such as Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, and Kenya, as well as in the United States. Before entering academia, I managed humanitarian relief projects during the Angolan Civil War in Zimbabwe and other places. And that background motivates rather my prioritization of human rights and governance in issues of basic services delivery and community development. So a lot of my work is about documenting and understanding community-led innovations. Often these are, happen outside the scope of the state and parallel formal systems of infrastructure and service delivery. And as well, I'm also interested in kind of bottom-up grassroots interventions in formal planning processes that can lead to social transformation and improve the lives of communities on the ground. So my current research projects, I'm for 3 years here in the East Bay, I've been working on with colleagues in ESPM on sustainable farming and food access here in the East Bay. We're having an agroecological city conference in early spring. So if that's something of interest, definitely happy to share information about that. I'll be starting a new project in the spring as part of a multi-campus research proposal addressing California communities doubly vulnerable to catastrophic wildfires. So that kind of combines my interest in land, food, and water, and working with colleagues at UC Merced and UCLA. And that's going to be a 3-year project. So if that's something of interest, happy to talk to some of you about that.
Congratulations on that. Those grants are hard to get.
They're hard. They're hard. Yes, we're super excited about this. We're very excited about it. And it's so needed, given all that's happening around climate change and wildfires here.
And actually, the Blum Center is teaching a course on disaster response. So
we should connect. Yeah,
that'd be great. Yeah.
Awesome. And then there's other projects in the works, but I'll wait. Hopefully they get funded, and then I'll be able to talk about them publicly. But maybe we could go to the next slide. I can talk about some example projects and classes that I teach. So some of the images here on the slide represent projects that have been involved in. In the top left corner, that was a project around the human right to water and sanitation in 2 low-income settlements in Lagos, Nigeria, and we were partnering with communities who did not have access to treated pipe water, and working with them and nonprofit organizations to advocate for their access to clean water. And in doing so, it was a process of working with the community to develop relevant indicators for community members, then using what we call smartphone ethnography. So using cell phones to rapidly collect data to map conditions at the household level, and rapidly collect data and then visualize and present that to decision makers. And we were able to secure new water connections for 2 communities that had been ignored by the state. Also on the top row on the right, that's a project around creating household scale biodigesters in communities. I have a paper on this and with a colleague where we talk about our experiences with not only biodigesters, but other kind of alternative technologies that are utilized by people who live directly off the land, including in cities, that are often discouraged by the state due to zoning regulations and other forms of policies that don't encourage these alternative technologies. And so we talk about how through partnerships, working with community members, nonprofits, and academia, you can create proof of concept that can be a catalyst for transformation in places where both the private sector is risk averse and government is just not doing anything. So you can kind of create the demand for change by piloting interventions. So these are things that we talk about in class. In the bottom left represent projects around water, community water access, as well as rezoning local communities for access to healthy food. So along the right side of the screen, these are courses that I teach here at Berkeley. What I will say is that the top two City Planning 251 and 254 are courses that I teach regularly. 251 in the fall and 254 Sustainable Communities in the spring. CP 119 at the very bottom is an undergraduate course, but I do sometimes have graduate students take that class, and I teach that in the fall. And then the other classes, 290, 291, I teach on a rotating basis. We had special topics. 290 is a graduate research seminar. So I've taught that several times here, where we explore the human right to water and look at case studies around how communities are advancing the human right to water, both here and abroad. And then in 291, what we call graduate studios in the College of Environmental Design are kind of hands-on projects where you get a chance to, if you're taking an architecture or landscape architecture course, you're simulating real-world projects in a kind of environment that mimics working for a consulting firm. Planning, our studios are more like practicum, where we work with actual community partners on real-world projects. So I've had previous studios around informal urbanism in Lagos, Nigeria, where we partnered with grassroots environmental and housing rights activists on community-led solutions to improve access to housing and water in communities in Nigeria. This spring, I'm teaching a graduate studio at the intersection of two of the biggest issues, racial displacement and policing. And partnering with a community-based organization, Just Cities, and we're talking about, like Alice said, policy design is also part of development engineering, and so we're talking about a model in which we work with communities and partner to develop community-led solutions to some of the toughest challenges in societies. And so we'll be talking about storytelling around the recently passed fair chance housing ordinances in Berkeley and Oakland, which were developed by formerly incarcerated in partnership with city officials and nonprofit groups to put a policy on the books that's actually making change. And then we'll also be partnering with Antioch and Berkeley as well on new approaches to policing. So a lot of the work I do is around basic services and processes and community-led, design and solutions to some of our toughest challenges. And these are the things that we talk about in our classes. And then I just have one last slide with two images that I love to show. This was from the Lagos Infrastructure Imaginaries studio when we traveled to Nigeria to partner with groups. On the right, in particular, these are two women who are members of the Nigerian Slum Settlements Federation, and they were facing illegal evictions, which doesn't sound great, but in practice it's horrific, where government is actually burning down people's houses and bulldozing the houses of the poor to make way for many McMansions and developments of the elite. And literally people have come up with a process, using GIS and mapping to document that they exist and literally put themselves on the map as a basis to negotiate with authorities to document the economic activity and livelihoods in their communities that otherwise would be overlooked because no one's counting them. So that's another aspect that's really important when thinking about design solutions, not only the technology, but data as a political act and as a process of transformation. And so these women, who are part of the Nigerian Slum Settlements Federation, kind of model what's possible, even in some of the most dire circumstances. And then on the left, this is what we were engaging with also in this studio was, working with artists and others, bottom up visions for the city, because a lot of the development that's leading to these illegal evictions is this kind of top down development processes and ideas about ecological green cities that are really about elite development and investment and come from outside of the country. And we were working with grassroots partners to kind of capture what do people imagine what would the green city look like if planned from below? And so this was an image of an artist rendition of Legos, and that's kind of builds off the spirit of the city, called it shanty megastructures. But these are the things you have. Design is about opening up new possibilities for envisioning the future, which creates new spaces for solutions. So those are the things we talk about in some of these classes. So thank you so much for the opportunity today, Alice.